Chief, thanks so much. Let's go back to just prior to 2001. I think Timothy Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong here, was the 15th officer-involved situation, correct? That ended in some negative way, right?
Absolutely.
Many of those were warranted. You know, police had to do what they had to do. But let me ask you, at that time, you were in internal affairs?
Yes, I was a sergeant assigned to our internal investigations section.
So you're looking into all of these cases, correct?
Yeah, I had been involved with a number of them.
Do you recall that? Can you talk about any of those times?
Absolutely. I mean, we had gone through a series of officer-involved shootings, and many of them involved unarmed young black men. And the community was very upset about this. And I remember in 2001 when the death of Timothy Thomas took place, and just the boiling over point at that.
Did you understand the boiling over?
You know, I did. I knew that there was a lot of concern about that. A number of these were very controversial, and a number that we investigated that we even wrestled with at the time.
Which ones were you like, gosh, I just don't know?
You know, we saw a number take place, a number of them take place, and, you know, I don't want to go back into reinvestigating these cases, but there were a number, you know, over the years that we saw. You know, we saw, you know, Roger Owensby, we saw Michael Carpenter. There were a number of these cases that, you know, were very concerning for the community at the time.
You're a black man, you're a police officer. I'm sure you can separate yourself and be both things, right? So as a black man, how did you feel? And when all of these shootings or officer-involved killings were occurring?
You know, it's definitely something concerning. When I see a community in so much pain, a community that looks like me, a community of people that I know, that I have relationships with, and to see their concern and their outrage over these incidents, you know, you have to be concerned.
I'm gonna guess here that people that you're sitting around having picnics with or family gatherings with are saying to you as a police officer, sergeant at that time, what the hell is going on?
Absolutely, you know, and something that you know, we needed to get to the root of ourselves. How were we policing? What was happening in our city that so many of these incidents are taking place?
So the collaborative happens. Timothy Thomas dies. There is a whole process which was painful for everyone in this city. But the collaborative agreement comes out of that. Do you think the collaborative was gigantic in helping this city heal?
I think it absolutely was tremendous. And I think that locally, people don't often realize how huge it really was. You know, you heard the governor just a couple of weeks speak here, and he mentioned that the Ohio Collaborative is partially based on our collaborative agreement here. To see parties come together and come to an agreement on how we would move forward. And yes, it was painful at the time. I mean, there was struggle, but nothing good, you know, happens unless there is struggle.
I have often thought that the marches of this past summer never got out of hand, really, in this city because we went through the pain 20 years prior.
You know, I think we learned a lot of lessons. And I think a lot of what we learned showed through. You know, very different. You know, the civil unrest that took place in 2001, as we talked about at the very beginning, this was about what was happening here in Cincinnati. People were angry at the Cincinnati Police Department. Last year, this was about something that happened 600 miles away. But it spilled over here and worldwide. People were angry about not just specifically here, they were angry about the criminal justice system as a whole, about social injustice as a whole, and it showed across the world. So something very different, something that none of us had ever seen before.
Can you get a little more granular about how the collaborative changed this police department for the better?
I think, first and foremost, what was born out of that is really the value of our relationship with the community, specifically community problem-oriented policing, where we realized that the police and the community could work together to solve problems in our neighborhood. Something we still try to do, something we still focus on, where we could come together and address the different issues that are troubling our neighborhoods and find solutions together. I think that is probably the biggest thing that was born out of that. But even beyond that, some of the other things that we've learned, a lot of the technology that has come out of that, mobile video recorders, the in-car cameras, which was the predecessor to our body-worn cameras, which we are now on our second generation of. All of that was born out of this. Our commitment to being transparent in our investigations, the way we give a press conference and provide any video within the first 24 hours of an officer-involved shooting, that had its roots in that. The way we do our investigations, the establishment of the Citizen Complaint Authority, all of that was born out of this.
Because it used to be, when there was an officer-involved situation, it might be a week before the chief came out and said, here's what we think happened, right?
Absolutely.
Now, it's much faster.
Absolutely. As quick as we are able, as quick as we can be accurate in the information that we have, we try to provide that information as quickly as possible.
And how does that affect those who feel perhaps victimized by the police?
I think it builds that relationship. It builds trust. One of the things that I've learned is that the community can understand if we make a mistake. They can even understand if an officer does something wrong. What they cannot understand and what they won't tolerate is when they feel that they're not being told the truth, when they're being lied to. That angers the community and that enrages them. That is unacceptable. They know that police are human too. We make mistakes, but they want to know the truth and they want that information as quickly as possible. They want to have that trust and confidence that their police department is going to be open and honest as to what's occurring.
Tasers came out of it, right?
Tasers came out of it.
A different way of taking someone you're arresting down too. Like there was a whole training component to this.
Tasers, de-escalation training. So much of that has been born out of this effort. So much of the work that we do now really had a lot of its roots in what took place. People ask me what are one of the things that I'm really proud of. As I mentioned that I was a sergeant, in 2001 when the civil unrest took place. When the DOJ came in and we worked through that process, I promoted several more times. I promoted to lieutenant, then I promoted to captain. And during my time as captain in charge of the internal investigation, that's when we came into compliance with the way we were conducting our investigations and the way we established our relationship with the Citizen Complaint Authority. So that's something that I'm very proud of.
I imagine so. So it took you to kind of get in there and dig in and help fix this.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that needs fixing that you see?
This is a work in progress. Policing is not a static profession. It's something that evolves. We evolved from the way we were in 2001 to where we are now. I don't think that we'll ever be in a perfect place, but I think we are much better for it. I think we are better positioned than a lot of places, and that goes into the hard work of the community and our officers here. There's been a lot of hard work in this.
In fact, this last year, so many people were asking during that time of unrest, saying, we want you to have psychologists on hand. We want you, and so much of what they were asking, checkbox, 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 CPD already has because of that collaborative, including psychologists on standby, right?
Absolutely.
That doesn't get talked about a lot. Would you mind detailing that?
That is one of the things that I also found about during the civil unrest. I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of the young people that were out here engaging in the demonstrations, and they were very in tune with what was happening nationally, but they weren't in tune with what was taking place here in our own city. That's one of the things that we have to do a better job of communicating what we have done here. You know, I look at all of the things that have been talked about, the reforms that need to take place, the way our officers are hired, the screening process, the implicit bias training and additional trainings that we were doing prior to the civil unrest last year. We had just, you know, a month prior to the civil unrest last summer, we had completed a training series on fair and impartial policing. We were already working on these things. You know, we had long since banned chokehold in our policies and procedures, and continuing to look for ways to improve. So much has been done.
Do you think it's important that a minority be the chief of police?
You know, we've had good chiefs before. I don't think it's exclusive for a minority to be chief of police. We certainly need the opportunity. I think that, you know, it helps. I think that communities often want to see their police department made up of a diverse group of people that reflects the community. So diversity matters. I don't think it's exclusive, but it matters.
Is it attitudes more important than the race or the gender of anyone?
I think it's the ability. I think it's the commitment. I think it's the relationship. I think it's all of those things that make for the right person to lead a police department.
Ultimately, 2001 was a very dark time in Cincinnati's history. As you look back on it, how far have we come?
I think we've come a long way. Like I said, I think policing is not a static thing. It's evolving. One of the things that I will say, I believe that the police component of the criminal justice system has evolved faster than the rest, than the court system, than maybe our corrections system. I think we work harder than anybody at changing and being better.
Cincinnati's a better place than it was in 2001?
I think I'd like to say it is. I don't think it's a perfect place, but I believe it is better in the way that we police, in the value we put on working with the community and having those community relationships.
When it comes to the community and police, you look at those 20 years, does time heal all wounds, or was it the change?
I don't think all the wounds are still healed. I think we still have more healing to go. I think policing has a long history to overcome, not just in Cincinnati, but as a whole. And I think that is something that we have to continue to work towards.